I got a character build that is just the bomb.
Like the Nerdarchy Goblin Bomber, perhaps? How about we do a Mad Bomber 5e D&D character build guide?
I'm Nerdarchy Ted.
I'm Nerdarchy Dave. Welcome to Nerdarchy for Nerds, by Nerds.
Now let's explode on into this video.
Alright folks, as always, this is a D&D character build guide video, which that means a couple things you can expect. One is we're going to do a character build guide for the Mad Bomber, but it's really inspired by the Nerdarchy mascot, our little bomber buddy here. He's been with us a long time. I even, played a character in a Pathfinder 2e game, and I literally used the picture from our Goblin Bomber as the portrait for the character because it was an alchemist and bombs was a thing.
Absolutely.
So, so I had a lot of fun with that, but we're like, you know what? We need to do the 5e version for you folks. Maybe you can relate to it. And also, like, what D&D player doesn't like blowing stuff up? Like, if you've never burnt down or blown up a tavern in your D&D career, are you even a D&D player at all? For real. But, there's a couple things I want to make sure you know. Down in the description below, you can find the character build guide over on the DMs Guild. You can go download it for free or pay what you want. $1, $1 million, doesn't matter. Just pay what you want. And you also get the cool NPC in there as well that you can use in your campaign if you're a DM and you don't want to use the actual character to it. Also, we're going to put up the D&D Beyond character sheet that you can look at down in the description as well and see what the 20th level Mad Bomber looks like and what we build out. It's only fair to mention this is a D&D Beyond sponsored video, so go check out D&D, power up your games with D&D Beyond. It's a great resource for both players and GMs. There'll be a link for that down in the description as well.
If you're looking for another way to support the channel to keep making videos like this, as well as all the awesome content over on nerdarchy.com, why not check us out over on Patreon and support us there?
As a special reward, you'll receive 5e content for both players and GMs alike. We do all kinds of things over there. We make drop-in encounters. We do magic items that we sometimes turn into print and play cards. We do subclasses, races, spells, feats, you name it. We're doing it over there. And also, we're going to take our character build guides, NPCs, and our awesome out-of-the-box encounters book and take those style of things and mash them together so you'll be able to find a drop-in encounter themed off of this very video and that NPC that we create over on the DMs Guild over on our Patreon. The links will be down in the description, and also there will be a free sampler that you can download and kind of get an idea what our Patreon rewards are like. There will also be a card up here you can click on.
All right, so without further ado, let's dive into this character build, look at what our options are, and see what this kind of works out. So for our races, we have several things we kind of already talked about, a direction. But if we're talking about making a mad bomber, a mad alchemist, we got to look at what the possible options are. So we got Goblin, we got Kobold, we got Fire GENASI, and we got GNOME.
Yeah, I think they all work really well for this. If you didn't want to do the Mad Bomber as a Goblin, you could do it as any of those other ones, and thematically, they're just going to fit. So for our class options, we're going to look at Artificer, clearly, and also Druid, Circle of the Spores could be an interesting take as well.
We look at Fighter because, we're talking about someone who's going to be, somewhat physical, somewhat martial. So Fighter definitely works for us, as well as if we're talking about blowing stuff up. The best things, the best classes of blowing up are going to be Sorcerer and Wizard.
So for background, we have a couple options. We have Criminal, Entertainer, and Guild Artisan.
We've also got Pirate, Sage, and SIMIC Scientists. We feel that basically all of these things are bringing something to the table that is going to, fit in with alchemy or with explosives, things that you've got used to or have access to this kind of mentality.
Yeah, so, we want those background choices. We feel like they all fit. And also, we discussed the tie-in to the Mad Goblin Bomber, our mascot, but also like from out-of-the-box encounters, there's some other Goblin Bombers. When we talk about the NPC, we'll bring up as well that, some of those choices will make a lot more sense.
All right, so let's dive in. What are we looking at as far as stats?
So now we're going to take a look at the stats, and for the physical stats, we have a 10, 13, 10, so strength of 10, dexterity of 13, and con of 10.
We're looking at an intelligence of 14, a wisdom of 10, and a charisma of 14. So you can already see, based off of this, there's some classes now that are going to fall off the option list if we're going to multi-class.
So now we're going to pick our race, and as we said, you know, we've been leaning for Goblin the whole time. We're not going to throw you a curveball. That was not a red herring. We are literally going to go with Goblin.
Well, it's kind of hard to make the Goblin Bomber without actually being a Goblin. So totally makes sense. You know, that's going to come with all of the, you know, the cool things that Goblins get: Nimble, Escape, Fury of the Small, all that jazz. You know, where do we go for a background choice?
So for our background, we're going to go with Criminal. We feel like our mascot is a little bit on the shady side. So going with Criminal background, there's a couple things we get. We're going to get Stealth and Deception.
We're also going to get access to a tool set and a gaming set. We felt that dice fit best here, and because of the way things are chosen, we choose our background after we choose our class, and we're actually going to get access to Thieves' Tools from our class. So for here, we're actually going to choose the Herbalism kit.
And if you haven't guessed this one yet, our character class, we're going to start off as an Artificer.
This is going to give us access to Arcana and Nature as far as skills, but it's also going to give us some other things as well.
As we mentioned, we're going to get those Thieves' Tools. We're going to also take Alchemist supplies as well, because let's face it, we want to blow things up and build bombs, and we need the skill set to do it. Also, we're going to get access to Tinker Tools. So if we want to make those explosives be a little bit more on the mechanical side, I feel like there's some things that we can do. Maybe some clockwork, alchemist fired combinations can be done.
Combined alchemy and tinkering, and you know, we'll get all kinds of weird stuff going on.
So we're not going to do this through the whole build, but we're going to mention a couple spell choices and why we picked them. For cantrips, we went with Acid Splash as well as Poison Spray.
We're also looking at Catapult, Tasha's Caustic Brew, and Grease. We feel that all of these are very kind of alchemical in nature. Catapult might not be alchemical, but it allows you to hurl the bombs that you're able to create, you know, even further than you would be able to throw them. So we felt these were all very thematic spells for the build that we're looking at. Also,
the Artificer encourages you to reflavor your spells as your gadgets and your gear and doing things, and we're absolutely going to do that. We do want this character to be able to actually make physical, you know, alchemy supplies like acid and alchemist fire, and then use that catapult spell to launch them. Now, this does a couple things for us. Now we don't have to use our stats, right? Our physical stats in order to throw the bombs. Matter of fact, it becomes a dexterity saving throw versus our DC. And, you know, the thing about acid or alchemist fire, when it hits, it breaks. The catapult spell itself already does damage. And then in addition to that, the thing's going to break and it's going to do even more damage. Your DM might give you some pushback on this. We have talked to people who disagree with that, but me as a GM, if you smack someone with alchemist fire, I don't care how you hit them with it, it's going to explode and they're going to take the fire damage as well.
You know, and as far as I'm concerned, a expendable resource like, oh, I have bought or made alchemist fire, to me, I'm either using time or gold or a combination thereof to actually get the thing, and for the extra little bit of damage, it's really no skin off my back. So totally allowed in my games.
Yeah, so the catapult spell really ups the ante for your bomber character. And also you're gonna be like, oh, what do I want to do with my spell slots? I really want to be able to throw my bombs in combat. Or do I want to do one of these other things? So that's kind of nice. And then also, like, I would reflavor the acid splashes, like throwing vials of acid, only these ones are better. And same thing with the poison spray. It might just be, you know, it might just be something that you have, like a canister that looks like a fire extinguisher or something that you can shoot off at somebody.
Indeed. All right, so this is actually a fairly cut and dry kind of thing. So we're actually going to take Artificer all the way to level 6. That's going to give us all kinds of options. You know, first off, we're going to be able to get access to our infusions. First off, we're going to want that alchemy jug. It very much fits the character in a lot of different ways. And let's face it, alchemist, alchemy jug, Makes a lot of sense. And also, I think an enhanced focus is going to really be able to help this character up that DC of their spells.
Now, you will see that I actually changed that on the character sheet, because as I was building out the character on the D&D Beyond character sheet, I realized carrying a lot of bombs is freaking heavy. As much as I really like the alchemy jug, and we had talked about when we were like, prepping for the video, I ended up going with a bag of holding to keep all the bombs in, but I also feel like you could switch back and forth between the two depending on what's going on in the campaign and what you feel like the character needs as well.
Sure.
Or, like some of the other things, like maybe the focus isn't as necessary, so you can ditch the focus and get the alchemy jug instead. But there's definitely directions to go in. The next thing we have to make a choice on is at 3rd level when we get access to our specialty. And I mean,
I think this is a no-brainer.
Yeah, I mean, it's a no-brainer. We're going to go with the Alchemist. We're already good at doing alchemy stuff, which is going to give us another option for another tool set. Normally you would get alchemy supplies, but we already have it. And the way the subclasses word it, if you already have it, you can pick another one. I believe we went with brewer's supplies.
Yeah, I mean, it's not too far off, but if you're already, going down this rabbit hole of making alchemical and herbalist, kind of things, I think brewer supplies is kind of the next thing. You might want to be a little off when you start making these things. So why not have a few while you're playing with explosives?
Yeah, well, not only that too, like you get the elixir feature from being an alchemist too. So the idea is you are brewing and making stuff anyway.
Sure.
So thematically, it just felt like it works. So like we have bombs, we have potions we can make and give out. And also we can do things with the herbalist kit and
Sure.
the alchemy supplies and the brewing. I think it's going to synergize really well.
I would agree. And, whether you're trying to make alcohol to make your explosives more explosive, or whether you just want to have a few
medicinal purposes.
Medicinal purposes. However you want to do it, I think it totally works for this character. Next up, we're going to make our choice for our ASI. What are we looking at here?
So level 4 ASI, we are going to actually take a feat and not a stat adjustment. I know. Well, so the problem with trying to make this type of character in 5e, other systems actually just do it better. All those things are essentially improvised weapons. So we're going to take Tavern Brawler, so they're not improvised weapons for us, so we can be better at doing them. We can use our proficiency mod when we do have to throw them and we're out of spell slots, or we want to save our spell slots. I mean, it's going to give us some other things like being able to mix it up and brawl and do a die for damage, which I don't see this character wanting to ever do. But, maybe because they've been working with, these supplies and stuff, it's giving them a little bit of extra oomph when they mix it up, because they've been inhaling chemicals for a long time at this point. We're also going to get a stat increase from that, so we're just going to put it in con.
So 2 more levels of Artificer. We're going to wind up getting Alchemical Savant at 5th level, and then Tool Expertise at 6th. And I think that's going to round us off for Artificer.
Yeah, now we're really good at making stuff, and we have to make rolls to do it. And Alchemical Savant actually lets us add our modifier, intelligence modifier, to damage for certain damage types. I believe it's like poison, fire, acid. I think we can also get the benefit when we heal as well. So it's going to be super useful. I don't see this character doing a whole lot of healing. But when we're casting spells and doing those types of damage, it's going to be super useful.
All right, so where do we wind up going from here?
So from here, believe it or not, we're going to go with the 2 levels of fighter. And we're going to do it for a very specific reason. 1, we're like, you know what? A fighting style might be cool. And 2, action surge.
So 2 levels of fighter. We're gonna get that fighting style, as Dave said. We're gonna choose archery to give us that +2 bonus to hit with ranged weapons. Anytime we make a ranged attack, boom, it's gonna really be able to help us out since we're throwing things. Nice. We're also gonna get our second wind. That's some kind of healing, so I don't know whether it's going to apply with a chemical savant or not. But that aforementioned action surge, now we can throw even more things. Super awesome. It's gonna really allow us to blow more stuff up.
And also, I want to say it like, I feel like almost immediate, like 3rd level, this character is pretty much done for being a Mad Goblin Bomber. And by 6th level, you're really good at being a Mad Goblin Bomber. And from here, we're only just going to double down and get even better. we're just going to finish it off with Sorcerer. We're going with Wild Magic because this character is a little bit on the wild side and is blowing things up and a bit chaotic.
The idea with going Sorcerer is we're going to be able to use our sorcery points to be able to twin our spells or to transmute our spells so that, oh, we might make alchemical fire, but, we really want this to, be cold or lightning if, the target of our intended damage is resistant or immune to what we're trying to pull.
More important than that, whenever you use a damage type that isn't fire, acid, or poison, you can turn it to those things to get the extra damage from that alchemical savant. So that's where it comes in super useful. Twin spell, I have a specific reason why I want this. That is so when you cast catapult, you can hurl 2 things instead of 1.
Yep, it's very nice, synergy to work with all of these things. With the added, points, we can be able to use those higher level spell slots that we might not be using those spells to convert them into sorcery points to do more with, or you've got the flexibility to kind of go back and forth as you see fit. This really works out, very well. Our ASIs are going to go to increasing our intelligence. We want to get that up to 20. And then after that, we'll bump up our charisma a little bit just so that, we're just that much better if we have to do anything sorceress related.
And then finally, we'll eventually end up getting a quicken spell. Again, now we can do even more in one round. I mean, if you think about it, between action surge, quicken, twin, we could catapult a lot of stuff and do a lot of damage with a relatively low level spell and basic supplies pretty much.
Sure.
And I think that really rounds out this character and it makes it viable throughout all the levels. All those sorcerer levels are going to give you all those sorcery points and spell slots. And we just took spells that were kind of themed towards what we were going for anyway. From the sorcerer side of things, we tended to go with utility and defensive magics because we really want to lean into those things that we're getting from our artificer just because we have the higher stat there. We're better at it.
Absolutely. And, you have to look at, if you've got action surge, twin spell, and catapult, it's not actually all that costly to twin catapult twice and then quicken a cantrip. So you're doing a lot on your turn. It's very damage intensive no matter what level you're looking at. So it's going to hold up.
So from there, we're going to now take a look at how can we use this kind of character in our game and the NPC. We're actually going to, like we said, we're going to take this and turn it into an out-of-the-box style encounter, which we were actually inspired from anyway. In there, we have an encounter called Aces High, and it's basically Sky Raiders that are goblins, and they use bombs, right? So, I mean, that's our Mad Goblin Bomber, essentially. So we decided, well, what if we kind of extrapolated from that and kind of blew that out into an additional encounter?
We're going to blow that out?
Yeah, we're going to blow that into an additional encounter, and, we could either bump up the actual leader of the goblins in that encounter, Skeeves, or we could just make a new one that is the one that works for Skeeves and builds the bombs and does all the things. So, in that encounter on our Patreon, we'll have the map, a map for that as well as the encounter itself. And so now let's talk about how we can use this particular Mad Bomber in our games, which might be different than the encounter we present in the Patreon awards. We'd like to give a couple different ideas here.
So first and foremost, this is the kind of character that you could see either in a lair that, has been causing problems and the players have hunted them down. But this could easily, since you're talking about them having a bag of holding, imagine a small little satchel at their waist, and they're just constantly dropping and throwing these things, and they're flying faster than it would look like normally someone would be able to do. And, there could be all kinds of, hazardous things that are out there, you could create new types of hazards that come out of their experimental bombs and, what have you. So beyond just throwing the things and causing damage, they could have a whole lot of terrain effects wind up happening during the encounter and have a very tactical situation.
Yeah, like one of the bombs could be a web grenade, or it could make it like an oil slick, to make difficult terrain, things like that, make it fall down.
That could be your grease. You could have things that, throw out and it creates a pool of acid. And, if you're in some kind of complex, well, what if it, after 2 or 3 turns, it actually melts a hole and, now, there's a hole in the ground that you might fall 20 feet to the next floor and be out of combat until you either fly up or find your way back.
Now, if you're using, maybe you're using a more like WoW style, World of Warcraft style Tinker Goblin in your games, right? And they're so they might be more common in these particular Goblin tribes or clans, whatever your setup is. There might be a whole brigade of them, right? Like. There could be those that are trained in making the bombs, but then there might be those that are trained in like utilizing them, so that your players, they encounter, the bomber brigade for the goblins. I've also thought about doing this for gnomes as well. I think it works really well for those 2 races. They just seem to jive with that. And like, the player sees, they know they're encountering goblins, or they know they're encountering gnomes, and they're like, okay, whatever, this is going to be not so bad. And then next thing you know, they're dropping these bombs that are area effects. And obviously we could just make them alchemist fire or acid, or we could just make up new effects and make them special monsters that have a feature that allows them. And maybe it's an area of effect, right? Even if it's small, right? Even a 5-foot radius is kind of huge when you have like 10 goblins doing it.
Sure. And there's also the aspect, beyond, oh well, it's just a it's just a monster effect. You could wind up having the monster effect, but you could wind up creating a new alchemical item that, oh, well, what happens if someone decides to experiment and they learn the recipe or they recreate the recipe? Yeah. Now it's something that, could be added into a typical market or, what have you. So definitely a lot of different applications that could be done.
Yeah, I'm not saying we're going to make a new alchemical item or 2 for this encounter on Patreon, but it could happen.
It could happen.
But yeah, so no, that's definitely a fun way to do it. And even as a solo encounter too, it could be fun where like they kind of have a warren and cubby holes, and they like pop out like trapdoor spiders, throw their thing and then go back in and run. Maybe the door locks behind them, so the players have to figure out. The challenge becomes like, how do you get to them? And you're playing whack-a-mole.
We've seen the kind of scenario with kobolds or goblins, behind trapdoors, doing some kind of hit and run tactic. I think that would be utterly disastrous on a party if they're able to open up a spot, drop a bomb, close the thing, lock it, or get through a spot where the players are just too big to get through. That would just be a nasty trap.
Well, also you just mentioned like kobolds are interchangeable too. I think they work really well, especially because they're devious. They're known for making traps, and if you in your world, maybe the kobolds are more tinkery as well. Like the trifecta of tinkery in fantasy at this point, I think, is kobold, goblin, and gnome.
I would have to agree with you there.
I mean, I feel like some of those generally tend to be the ones that are more likely to blow themselves up than anybody else. But I feel like there's also, it could be a lot of fun. Now, we talked about using this one as an adversary, but also this could be a character that you have to go to. No matter what the race is, it doesn't really matter. Maybe the players need something specific from them in order to accomplish a goal or a quest. Maybe they found something and they don't know how it works, and it has an alchemical nature to it, and they're afraid that more of it's going to be made, and they need an expert to tell them like how to combat it. If it's like a poison or some kind of explosive, is there a way to neutralize it? With another alchemical thing, so they go to this expert, and it just becomes this wonky, crazy, wild character you get to introduce.
The crazy alchemist is always a fun thing. Looking at explosives, like to me, going with the friendly, this reminds me so much of Victor from campaign 1 of Critical Role, one of my favorite NPCs that Matt made, and that was his deal. He liked to make explosives, and seeing him is awesome. But you could have that kind of thing that Dave brought up, and regardless of whether it's poisonous, alchemical, or a combination thereof, you know, this strange thing, this strange character is the only one that might have a chance of understanding what this device is, how it works, or, you know, how to neutralize it. Or maybe this is the one, oh, we found this weird thing, we want to replicate it so that we have more. Here, make more.
Yeah.
So regardless of how you want to do things, you know, introducing this kind of cool character as an NPC, you know, could be a lot of fun, and, you know, however you want to play it.
Well, let us know. Would you play this character? Have you played a character like it? Would you use the NPC? How would you use the NPC? Share your thoughts, ideas, and theories down below in the comments with the rest of the Nerdarchy community.
While you're down there, don't forget to do all the fun things that make Nerdarchy and YouTube happy. Like, share, subscribe, even go ahead and attune to that notification bell.
Quick reminder, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, we drop new videos here on the channel, so come on back. Can't wait till then. No worries, we got you covered. Up here, you can find the card for the Supernatural Super Soldier Character Build Guide for D&D.
So until next time, stay nerdy.